For anyone looking to learn how to code, there are tons of both free and paid resources out there, but how do you know which ones are effective and which ones aren't? This all boils down to how one prefers to learn, but there are a few things you can look for in a course to help make the experience much smoother. Regardless of who's teaching you, there are certain qualities of a good teacher and a good course. Hi, I'm Victor, and today on Height Above Sea Level, we're going to talk about some of the things you should look for in a good course. Starting at number 1, and in no particular order, are practice problems. A course is not a course without practice problems and some solutions to help reinforce what you just learned. Many instructors won't give you conclusive practice problems, and some won't even bother to give you any. They'll just show you how they did something, and then you're on your own. It's like getting a personal trainer who shows you how to lift weights, but doesn't give you workouts to do. You're never going to get stronger that way. A good course should not only have practice problems, but these practice problems should be related to something you'll use in a real-life scenario. I've seen some courses out there present you with problems you'll probably encounter very few times in your programming journey. I understand that at its core, some of these questions should be trying to teach you the fundamentals indirectly, but I believe you'd learn better if it was connected to a real-life scenario. Let's say you're learning about DOM manipulation in JavaScript. A good practice problem would ask you, the student, how to display a notification once someone clicks submit or when they buy something, etc. These are the kind of things you've seen in websites and web apps you use on a day-to-day basis, and these types of interactions should form the core of what you practice at the end of each section or the end of the course. The second thing a good course should have is additional written content, whether that be in a PDF or Word document. Inasmuch as it's in your best interest to take notes when taking a course, there are certain little details in each video that don't make the cut, otherwise the video would end up being too long. This is where additional written content comes in to fill in the gaps. This is a good word to remember if you want to be a self-taught programmer. Gaps. There's not a single course out there that can teach you everything you need to know about programming, and whoever claims it can is a liar. There's just too much to cover. That being said, a good instructor knows this beforehand and will provide you with some more material brushing up on, if not covering, the areas they've left out. This lets you know where you're not particularly strong in and lets you know how to go about improving in that area. Furthermore, written content can also be printed out and studied away from your computer. Software developers spend enough time indoors in front of the computer as it is, so it would be a welcoming change of pace to be able to study in a different location than what you're used to. Yes, you could technically carry your laptop around with you, but depending on where you live or the current weather conditions, that might not be such a good idea. Paper doesn't have such limitations. You can take it pretty much anywhere with little to no hassle. Additional written content should provide you with some extra information that would otherwise be hard to find on your own, such as some industry knowledge the instructor gained from working with such and such company, some extra tips and tricks to make coding smoother, hidden pitfalls that may come your way in future, or even a word of encouragement. Number 3, a good course should tell you when and where you should expect to learn the things the instructor doesn't teach you. This is something you'll hear a lot, and I mean a lot, of instructors say out there. Don't worry about that for now, it's beyond the scope of this lecture. Okay, but when should I worry about it? Because if it's important enough for you to mention right now, then it's something I'm bound to encounter later on as I progress. Sadly, you'll find that many courses don't tell you when and where you'll encounter that one thing they told you not to worry about. This goes back to that what I said earlier, gaps. Scenarios like this create a gap in the curriculum that you will be expected to fill on your own. On one hand, it teaches you how to think like a programmer and find solutions to problems for yourself, but on the other, how do you know where and what to look for? If this happens many times, you end up being more confused, get frustrated, and probably even consider quitting entirely. This shouldn't be the case. A good instructor shouldn't leave you high and dry like that. They should at the very least acknowledge beforehand what they're teaching in the section is missing some parts, which will require you to learn them elsewhere. It would mean more work for you in the end, but it's much better than running blind and hoping somehow you'll figure things out. Software, regardless of the programming language, is constantly changing. By the time you come around to figuring out how to do that one thing the instructor missed, a new feature comes out that does the same thing twice as good but requires you to learn it eventually. All I can say is keep a lookout for these instances in your course and plan accordingly how you'll cover those missing areas. The fourth thing a good course does is tell you what to do next after finishing the course. This knowledge is crucial because it gives you an idea of how to connect one thing to another and ensures there's some continuity in your learning. A major issue for many students in traditional schools, whether that be elementary, college, or high school, is not knowing how what they're learning will help them out in the future. I'm sure at least one of you has experienced this. Even today, depending on the institution of higher learning you're attending, you might be required to take a class like biology despite your major being computer science. How biology helps a programmer is up for debate, but one thing I do know is you'll probably spend the rest of that semester frustrated with homework that you feel is a little more than pointless. This can also happen to self-taught programmers, but in a slightly different way. You may be learning something like JavaScript, but without a good grasp of HTML and CSS, some of the things in the course will go over your head because you don't know when and where they should be used. By the time you get around to finishing the course, you know a lot of things you don't know where or how to apply. Again, this shouldn't be the case. Apart from including some real-life cases sprinkled throughout the course should also point you in a direction of where the knowledge will come in handy. For example, after taking an HTML and CSS course, do JavaScript. After JavaScript, maybe you can learn about CSS preprocessors like less or Sass to make writing CSS a more fluid experience. Next, you can then move on to a front-end library like React. To give credit where credit is due, some courses do this, but they do so in such an ambiguous manner you'd think the next step is optional. Others offer a roadmap so confusing, you're better off finding your own way. A good course has a healthy balance of telling you enough of what you need to know after completing it, but not enough to leave you more confused than you came in. Number 5. A good course has an instructor who actively engages with students during and after the learning process. If someone selling you a course really wanted you to learn something, they'd follow up and check on your progress. Based on the number of students that take a course, it may not be possible to get to each one of them and provide an individual experience. However, there are things an instructor can do to ensure they're engaging with the students and not leading them deeper into tutorial hell. The first and most obvious way is through forums. Most platforms hosting courses have discussion sections where people can interact and discuss topics or the course in its entirety. Sure, they can hire someone else to answer the questions there, but an answer directly from the instructor themselves not only shows their commitment to teaching the students, but it also reinforces the students' trust in them. Another way would be to have a live Q&A session on YouTube, Twitch, or whichever platform they're most active on. This creates a classroom-like environment where every student gets to hear the answer to a question someone else asked. It's also a great way to connect with the instructor and alleviate some of the frustration and loneliness that come with trying to teach yourself something new. I completely understand that some of these instructors make courses full-time and their very livelihood depends on releasing new courses every so often, but it's also good to check up on the old ones. The goal of every teacher and the joy of every teacher is when the students learn what they're teaching. This is a long journey that requires multiple iterations. Maybe in future, instead of adding a new course, instructors can go back through their old ones and work with existing students to help with their learning. If this proves to be unsustainable, they could even dabble with the idea of adding a small fee for additional support such as custom assignments, take-home tests, or mock interviews. Either way, a good course is one where the instructor engages a lot with you, the student. Number 6. A good course includes a project you can demo to a recruiter or in a job interview. As you learn how to code, you'll discover you can make a lot of things. Some of these things will be cool, but they'll be pointless when you're looking for a job in software. For example, let's say you write a simple program that replies with welcome when someone says thank you, as well as a couple of other day-to-day interactions. As cool as this is, it doesn't solve many problems in the real world. Sure, it's a positive step in the right direction for those of you who want to work with AI and automation, but it might not be what a particular company is looking for. Alternatively, you could extend this to pick up certain keywords in customer support tickets, color code them based on priority, and arrange them in alphabetical order for easier reading. Even better, you could add a search bar so that whoever is interested in the tickets doesn't have to scroll down too far to find what they're looking for. Doesn't that sound more practical to you? You've taken this little project you enjoyed making and turned it into something someone would want to buy or implement in their company. Unless you're just learning to code for fun, don't you think such a project is more likely to land you a job? Let me know in the comments below. Finally, at number 7, a good course has a respectable price to length ratio. What do I mean by that? Take a look at the React course FreeCodeCamp has on their YouTube channel that's about 10 hours long. If someone on Udemy is charging $150 for a 2-hour course, then you should probably consider checking out the one by FreeCodeCamp first. After comparing the two, such a price probably seems suspicious. Did the Udemy course instructor leave out some important things FreeCodeCamp covers? Why is the difference in length so big and yet one is free but the other is not? These are all questions you should ask yourself before making any purchases. This doesn't always mean a longer course is better. You could even find that a longer, cheaper course is actually much worse than its shorter but expensive counterpart. But how would you tell the difference? One way is to check if the instructor has a YouTube channel. In many instances, they do and have uploaded some instructional videos on them you can look at and gauge if this is someone you're willing to pay to teach you. A lot of them rely on YouTube to advertise their courses, so it shouldn't be a big problem finding them. If you can't find them on YouTube, you can compare the price to length ratio with other instructors. Again, you can check those other instructors' YouTube channels just to make sure you're not comparing two bad instructors. Another way is to look at the reviews and ratings people leave after completing the course. These are normally a bit subjective, so you should take what they say with a grain of salt. What might work for one person may not work for another, so this one comes down to a judgment call on your part. All in all, what I can say is if a free version exists, check that out first before spending money on something you could have learned for free. That's all I had for you guys. Have you taken an online course before? Let me know what your experience was like down in the comments below. Also, be sure to like the video and subscribe if you found this helpful. It really helps out. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, from me to you, deuces.